level on public assistance. How did we end up with 15 million people who own a home where they owe more than it's worth? They're upside down on their mortgage. How does it end up where we have kids who graduate from college, can't get a job, and owe $40,000 in student loans? And they can't get off the way the corporations did. When a bank goes bankrupt, they get 100 cents on the dollar bailed out by the government. We can't get that for our students. They go upside down on their student loans, they're in hock for life. They can't get a house, they can't get a car. This happened because corporations have bought and owned Washington, D.C. Period. The Cook brothers, who are the largest private landowner in Montana, the Cook brothers, for ALEC, are putting up $250 million right up front to oppose Barack Obama. Are we going to let that happen? No! Are we going to let them buy our government? No! That's what we're here for.
Stop the war.
Okay, we need to take it back. I suggest that we do two things to fix income disparity. First of all, Dylan Radigan, MSNBC.com, one of my favorites, is running a campaign called Get the Money Out. And that's to get the money out of politics. Okay? Go to his website, sign up. The other thing we need to do, I'm sorry, I like unions. I'm a union man. Have been my whole life. And I believe that in order for America to get a pay raise that we haven't had in about 30 years, you need to join a union. Thank you.
I think there are two things that we can do that would make a significant impact on the budget deficit and our quality of life. One is single-payer health care. It is a no-brainer. And the other thing I wanted to say is income disparity will exist probably in our culture for a long time. And what we need to think about and encourage other people to voice their opinion about is how much is enough. Maybe some people do deserve to earn more than other people based on how hard they work, what their skills are, but is 10 times the amount of what the average American works enough? Is 20 times? Is it 30 times? And why aren't we taxing very high incomes? I mean, how much is enough? And obviously, I'm middle class and I have a good life and I have enough. And why do people have to make so much money and refuse to be taxed when they make unimaginable amounts of money? And as if they don't want taxes, get the hell out of our country. Our government should step in and say, for the common good, above a certain income, you will be taxed at a higher rate. And if you don't like it, get out. So I propose that discussion about how much is enough is where, maybe that needs to be clarified, and as citizens, how much is enough?
Win, thank you.
This is not about the Republican-Democrat divide. That is divide and conquer. This is not a partisan message. This is for everybody who is the 99%. Thank you.
John. The last time we had the level of income disparity in this country that we have now was at the beginning of the Great Depression. We need to change that. And the biggest way we can change that is to to get the money out of taxes, right, out of government. Right now, over 70% of the population, when polled, says that the upper levels need to be taxed more heavily, yet our government is not following through and doing that. If we're going to get the money out of government, we need to actually put a group together, sit down, write the constitutional amendment to accomplish that, and then get it put going. We need to do more than just talk about it. We need to write the document and then get the country behind us.
All right, I love everyone's energy out here. And just like this gentleman here, please make sure when you're done with your rant, rant with a purpose. Let's get some things on the agenda that we can get the group talking about after everyone's done expressing themselves. Thank you. Jay. I guess my issue that I just want to bring up is a common theme I'm hearing is in the Occupy Wall Street is this is about corporate capitalism. I want to remind the audience that Sarah Palin shares that opinion. I don't think the issue is corporate capitalism. I think take the corporate out. It's capitalism. If we don't face that, we're in deep doo-doo. Here's why. These issues don't change, and if you want to just return to the golden age of the 1950s, let's not forget the imperialism that was still taking place on behalf of the United States to make that golden age. We were rape, plundering, and pillaging the rest of the world so we could have a wonderful middle-class growth, but that was at other people's expense. The issue can't be a return to any kind of capitalism. We need to seek alternatives. I tell my students all the time about Christopher Columbus and how he set sail and people are talking about flat worlds. And we laugh at them and say, God, how ridiculous were people to think the world was flat. I'm wondering in 500 years how many people will laugh at us and say, I can't believe those people hung on to capitalism for so long. So what's our flat world issue? It's that. This is a human-made institution. It's a structure we've created over hundreds of years. It needs to be unmade. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the solution is. I'm one person. I know there are alternatives, and I know we're smart enough to figure out something other than capitalism. I don't care what we call it. Communism, socialism, anarchism, poofism. I don't care. Let's find something. Let's talk about it. Let's start a dialogue. A legitimate one. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of it. We've been indoctrinated since we were very, very, very young that there's only one alternative. That we're at the end of history. How ridiculous is that? So none of us are agents of history anymore. We're all just objects of capitalism's own subjectivity. Come on, folks. Let's find something else. Let's talk about it. Let's spend some time. I think right here, if I'm going to offer one proposal, one thing, let's spend some time in conversation looking at and generating some kind of critical analysis of the system in which we live. Being brave enough to say, maybe it's wrong. I don't know what the answer is, but maybe it needs to change. And that's what my proposal is. Let's sit down and start working on a better critique of our system and our world system.
Any other speakers?
Levi Walren? Levi.
All right.
Yes, I do.
I have like a prepared speech I have a prepared speech that I worked on last night.
Switch it.
All right. Okay. This is a quote by Thomas Jefferson. I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their currency, first by the inflation and then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around the banks will deprive the people of all property until their children wake up homeless
on the continents that their fathers conquered. The issuing powers should be taken from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs. Okay. That's our founding fathers. Here we stand today. To whom does the banking system belong? It belongs to the Federal Reserve. This should concern us. The very person voted by committee to compose the Declaration of Independence was Thomas Jefferson. He did not take this issue lightly, nor should we. So what's wrong with the Federal Reserve? Let's first look at how the Federal Reserve works. For every dollar printed by the Federal Reserve, it loans to the U.S. government at interest. Where does the money to pay off the interest come from? It comes from, yet again, the central bank. The Federal Reserve Bank has to continuously increase the money supply so that the interest may be paid. And yes, that extra money has interest on it as well, creating more debt. We are therefore made slaves to debt because the U.S. government and the public will never be able to come out of this self-generating debt. We can look to our president and ask, why aren't you fixing our economy? Okay. But the truth of the matter is, okay. All right, so I'll cut to the chase. Anyway, what I'm saying is how our system works right now is that we are borrowing money from the central bank. We have to pay interest back to every dollar that's printed. Well, we can't do that because we don't have the money to cover the interest. So we are then slaves. And by doing that, actually increasing the amount of money, we're actually devaluing the dollar. Since the Federal Reserve has actually made, our dollar has devalued 96%. $22.88 is the equivalent of $1 in 1913 at when the Federal Reserve was actually instituted. So, yeah, this form is undoubtedly for the redistribution of wealth in America. I agree. Corporations should be held to pay their taxes, as do we. Our representation in Congress needs to make it past the lobbying dollar. But my core argument is that we need to look at the value of currency itself. If the situation arises that tomorrow we get our bailout, we in fact have accomplished nothing. Not until we realize the vision of Thomas Jefferson will we have true financial power. Power taken from the central bank and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna have the next person stand up here. How does everyone like that?
They don't fall off.
As long as they get a good sense of health.
Yeah.
That was quick.
These remarks are not from a right-wing point of view. They are from a left point of view. I am not a Republican and in no way want you to think that that I support them by criticizing the Democratic Party, the President Obama, or liberals. But I'd like to say liberalism in the United States is dead. President Obama is arguably the first president since Roosevelt with genuine liberal credentials, and yet his actions have been profoundly right-wing. Accusations of being a socialist notwithstanding. Though liberals would like to do so, it is not possible to pin responsibility on Republicans for most of Obama's actions. Here's a brief and incomplete list. You can make a case that the mediocrity at best of the health care reform bill was due to Republican intransigence, and of course, to corporatist political hacks like Max Baucus and so-called Blue Dogs. You cannot blame the Republicans for Obama's continuing wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. You cannot blame Republicans for Obama's relentless bombings of Pakistan, Yemen, and other countries. You cannot blame the Republicans for Obama appointing people like Lawrence Summers and Ben Bernanke to guide monetary policy in this country. You cannot blame the Republicans for the FBI raids on peace activists in Minneapolis and Chicago this past year. You cannot... And Obama's proposed cut in payroll tax will mean a 33% cut in revenues for Social Security program. That could be a mortal wound to Social Security that Wall Street has wanted for years. You cannot blame Republicans for that, hard as they've tried when they've had the power. When the most egregious parts of the USA Patriot Act were set to expire last year, and again this year, the president campaigned to have them renewed. You cannot blame Republicans for that. Obama overruled EP regulations on ozone, even though they were